What's up, viewers, subscribers, and agents alike? This your boy and light Lucifer Prince coming at y'all once again. Welcome. I'm back, and I had to give myself a little bit of a about a 2 week hiatus because I had some personal issues I was dealing with, like with family and so forth and so on. And I really wasn't in the mind state, so to speak, to really try to deal with the YouTube community and then dealing with, my wife and her surgery, which was a success, by the way. And basically was dealing with that and other issues and so forth and so on. So without further ado, I'm here. I'm back again, still kicking, still rolling, handling business. As usual, if you're watching this video around children, I ask that you remove them from your immediate vicinity because my videos are not for children because I have a penchant to use strong language. Now, also to mention, this does not constitute legal advice, nor does it constitute anything anti-government because I can't be anti-self. The sole purpose of this video is for informational and educational purposes only. Simple as that. With that being said, I want to title this video, Dispelling the Darkness. And the reason why is because as time goes on, I noticed that a lot of people are coming on social media and different platforms and so forth and so on. And certain key pertinent information in regards to becoming recognized as a secure party creditor in society has been obfuscated. And basically, the obstacles that people have placed is based solely upon their ignorance of not understanding totally what it is. Not to mention, you're also dealing with a quasi so-called governmental agency, which is a corporation. If you doubt what I'm saying, look it up. If you look up the Clearfield Doctrine, you'll clearly see that it says United States is merely a corporation. This is a Clearfield Doctrine. This has been decided with multiple Supreme Court cases. This is not my own, conjecture. This is not my own input. This is what it says in black and white. And this is what I always go by on my channel. I always go by the black and the white. I don't go by what I feel. I don't go by what I think. I go by what I read and what I study and what I apply. So the reason why I call this Dispelling the Darkness is because there's so much ignorance around this subject that, yes, of course, they're going to shadow ban you for telling the truth. They're going to make it seem as impossible for you to actually, basically, be your own automatous individual. And when you're automatous and you're basically self-defined, this is the problem with this so-called construct we live in called government. And the reason that people do not understand what it is because particularly govern means to control, and mentis, which comes from the root mentis means control of the mind, mentis, mind. So yeah, it's all about telling you what to think. And whether people believe this or not, this is one of the reasons why in the etymology of the English language, we have what we call spelling. Now, I'm not going to be one of those people that's going to sit here and try to make everything seem bigger than what it is. I'm just a person who actually looks at the root of the cause. And we know etymology is a root. So when you say spelling, spell, to cast. When you cast, it means to push forward. Okay? So when we cast something, it's sort of like people who fish. I like to fish too, so you know what casting is. Or when it says to cast to your TV, like on the Bluetooth, you're projecting something. Okay? When they say forecast, like in the weather, oh, today is going to be such and such. Today is going to be such and such. They're already putting it out there in your mind that this is the way it's going to be. And whether you believe it or not, that is a soft form of mind control. Now, a hard form of mind control is through the legal system. Yes, people, I know it's very hard for you to believe if you're watching this video for the first time, and it's the first time you probably see my face. But at the same token, yes, it is a hard form of mind control in the legal system because the words that you hear me saying and the words that are said in the legal atmosphere are not the same, which is why so many people have so many problems when it comes down to dealing with the legal system. However, when it comes down to deciphering the legal system, this is a term that they often use to describe people who know how to read into things and look at it for what it is in the legal sense and not just the generalistic sense, as i.e. layman's terms, okay? So you have to realize there was a time in history where education was only supposed to be garnered for the elitist. It was only supposed to be garnered for the elitist. Everybody else was supposed to do what they were told from the elitist standpoint, which is still pretty much what goes on in society today. However, there are those people who sit at a certain position in society who feel as if it is their right, it is their duty to tell you how to live your daily life. Whether we believe this or not, this is something, whether it directly or indirectly, corresponds with how we live. Whether we want to understand this and interpret it for what it is or not. I am not a conspiracy theorist. I'm a factualist, and I'm a person who goes by empirical evidence. Evidence that I can see that is based on evidence of things practiced. Not conjecture, not theory, not theorism. So let's get that straight. Now, the reason why I say dispelling the darkness is because there's this term that's loosely thrown around on social media, sovereign citizen. Let me tell you something. I'm going to read this from what was published, and I'm going to expound upon it a little bit. So it's not me being combative. I'm just a person who likes to pick things apart because what's presented before you is not always as it seems. Now, this comes from, it's a quick guide to sovereign citizens. Quick guide, okay? They said quick. And this comes from Michael Crowell from the University of North Carolina School of Government, published in August 2012, okay? One of the first documents I've ever read, because like I said before, I've been doing this for quite a while, and I had to understand and interpret exactly what this term was loosely construed around and why was it placed that way. Now, this is just opinionation from the individual author of this documentation, Michael Crowell from University of North Carolina School of Government. This is his input. This is not the overall input before anyone wants to be reactionary instead of understanding about what I'm getting ready to say. All right, let's get that straight. Now, he says, as quote, he says, note, much of the information for this paper was provided by detectives Rob Finch and Corey Flowers of the Greensboro, North Carolina Police Department, Amy Funderburk of the North Carolina Administrative Office of the Courts, and David Adenolfi of the North Carolina Attorney General's Office. Now, mind you, these are all people who work in government. So, before we proceed, just know that this is written from a standpoint of individuals who have all had their sources combined for this individual to make this publication. Okay? So, this is just a summation of what Michael Crowell has composed in his documentation. Let us read into it, though. What is a sovereign citizen? Now, notice, it says sovereign citizen, which is in quotation marks, is a catch-all phrase referring to a variety of anti-government individuals and groups who share some common beliefs and behaviors. The organizations to which many sovereign citizens belong have a variety of names: Moorish Nation, the Aware Group, Washita Nation, the North Carolina American Republic, etc. The same views may be embraced by freemen on the land, Sons of Liberty, and Aryan Nation. Many sovereign citizens may not affiliate with any of those groups in one way or another, though all sovereign citizens, whether tied to an organization or not, adhere to a view that the existing American governmental structure, including the courts and law enforcement, is a fraud, and that they, the sovereign citizens, quote, this is their saying, retain an individual common law identity, exempting them from the authority of those fraudulent government institutions. Sovereign citizens may issue their own driver's licenses and vehicle tags, create and file their own liens against government officials who cross them, question judges about the validity of their oaths, challenge the applicability of traffic laws to them, and in extreme cases resort to violence to protect their imagined rights. This is just what they're saying. This is what they're saying. They speak in an odd quasi-legal language and believe that not by capitalizing names and by writing in red and using certain catchphrases they can avoid any liability in our judicial system. Notice what he said, in our judicial system, and even lay claim to vast sums of money based on the premise that the United States government has secretly pledged them as security for the country's debts. At their most harmless, sovereign citizens are cranks who talk gibberish to cops and magistrates and judges and then become law-abiding when they face real legal trouble. At a different level, they may burden the court severely with filing of hundreds and hundreds of pages of nonsensical documents, and at their very worst, they may resort to deadly force to uphold their bizarre beliefs. Now, let me dissect this really quickly before I proceed. Now, this is their standpoint. First and foremost, as I always tell people all the time, irrespective of what they believe, they are corporations. Period. They are corporations. When you understand and understand the concept that they are corporations operating under color of law, please, 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 please take these definitions to Black's Law Dictionary. Color of law. Look that up. This is in Black's Law Dictionary. Look up corporation, Black's Law Dictionary. And look up citizen and look up sovereign separately in Black's Law Dictionary. It's an oxymoron. So when you say sovereign and citizen, you cannot be both. So when they say it's a catch-all phrase, it just basically allows them to grasp the complexities that they otherwise would not look into or otherwise would not want to recognize, that indeed the power of government is within the people. Okay, let's get that straight. See, they want you to believe that the be-all, end-all in this life is all about fiat, money, currency. No, the most valuable asset you have is the breath of life in which the Most High is giving you. That is the most valuable asset you have. That is your pledge. Your pledge is basically for you to use your sweat equity to live a fundamentally wholesome life. So when they talk about resort to violence, you're wrong. Because to be honest with you, if you harm a person or their property, you're guilty before the Most High and you're guilty before the world. So when I try to tell people that it's all about not harming a person or their property, I strictly stand by that. You know what I'm saying? So before anyone try to get it misconstrued, I strictly stand by that. However, you do have the right to protect yourself against any threat to your livelihood. Let's not get that mistaken. If anyone does their research and they do their due diligence, look up documentaries, many documentaries the world over. Look up Ruby Ridge. Look at that. You see what I'm saying? Look at that situation. Look at it for yourself. Do not take my word for it. Look at the documentary and look at it for yourself. Do your research. Don't take my word for it. But you have the right to protect yourself. If you did not, then why would means exist for us to not be able to do so? I would think contrary to that a means would exist for you not use it, then guess what? That's your fault. But we are supposed to live in peace with everybody. So let's get that straight. People who have this ideology do not have an ideology to want to do harm to anyone. It is to be simply left alone, without encroachment, without trespass on our private property. That's all it is. And our private property is whatever is in our private realm. We're private people. Everyone's a private person. It's just that you have consented and went with the assent for so long to give away your personal private information. This is what they don't want you to know. So when people have problems as far as getting themselves into trouble, then that's their problem. You cannot use a defense to, when you put yourself in trouble, to try to get yourself out of trouble. The objective is to stay out of trouble. That is the objective. It is not to go into court and to question when you put yourself into that situation. So I'm saying this in a neutral standpoint. If you mess up, you deserve consequences. That's on both sides. That's if government infringes, they deserve to be punished. And if the common people infringe upon the rights of other common people, they deserve to be punished. So I'm not taking nobody's side in this. I'm just here to dispel the ignorance, to demystify it. So with that being said, we don't speak in quasi-legal terminology. Sovereigns speak just as they are, sovereign. Citizens only know two words, yes and no. That's citizen speak. Yes, no. Sovereigns question. Wait a minute. Hold on. Let me check this out. It doesn't sit right with me. You see what I'm saying? And notice the word that they use. Quote. He said, liability in our court systems. That's all courts are. Liabilities. Everything handed to you. A vehicle registration, a tax form, anything of that nature. It's all a liability. But who is creating the liability? The liability cannot be created merely off you solely just existing. That is a fallacy, and it is a misnomer at best. To even address that as just me existing is a liability. So me wanting to travel, you call it driving. So I contest the validity of the word driving, motor vehicle, so forth. It's all in the law dictionary. So when we go to words to define them, they help us get to the point in which these words should be deciphered, not just loosely handled or commonly predisposed to make us believe one thing when it's totally something different. But we'll get there later. Okay, what they believe. Although the myriad sovereign citizen groups and individuals not tied to a particular group, all, see how they try to group everybody into one categorization? So people who don't affiliate with those groups are private people. People who affiliate with those groups are just common-minded private people. I mean, but then they say it's tied, all have their own idiosyncrasies in their beliefs. They tend to share some common ideas. The details may differ, but they all believe, quote, and they're going to tell us what the whole united private populace believes, right? You're right. The American government established by Washington and Madison and Franklin and other founders were secretly replaced at some point, maybe during the Civil War, maybe during the Depression, depending on who is telling the story, by a new governmental system based on admiralty law. Most significantly, where the government abandoned the gold standard in the earnings to foreign investors. Again, the details can vary considerably, but generally the explanation for large sums of money placed or pledged into it, ranging from hundreds of thousands of dollars to millions, depending on which sovereign citizens group's version you hear. As a consequence, they say two separate identities are created. The corporate shell account, the one pledged as security, is the straw man. Quote, you can look that up in Black's Law Dictionary. To which the sovereign citizens refer, and in their view is separate and distinct from their true identity, which is true. The true individual, common law individual, they say citizen, but you can't be a common law citizen. That's misnomer in and of itself. A citizen is a de facto, de jure individual entity. And you as a natural sentient being are two different things as opposed to the juristic person. But they'll never tell you this. I just did. Now, it is separate and distinct from their true identity. The true individual, common law individual, I'm going to say individual, but it says citizen, is not subject to the false, secretly established government and can avoid its jurisdiction by carefully distinguishing the way one's name is written, which is false. You can't distinguish the way one's name is written based upon the pretense of the reality behind the complexity of the legal sphere. What we're saying is that there is a natural sentient person, living natural person, look it up in Black's Law Dictionary, natural person, and then look up juristic person. Juristic person and natural person is not the same. What they're not telling you is that the juristic person is the entity that is used for transmitting utility. It is to get one thing from point A to point B. You are point A, the natural sentient being. In order to give this juristic person life, you have to be what is called, according to the UCC1, an accommodation party. A document is a dead thing until you give it life. And that name being on that document is when you give it life. Because in order for something that is dead to have life, you must give it what? Breath. Once you give it breath, it becomes life. Did you get it? Hope you did. Don't let them trick y'all into believing that what you're doing as far as standing up for yourself is right. Now, if you do something wrong to somebody, their property, hey, it is what it is. But you just going about your daily means of just existing, contest it all day long. Please do. But if you do something to somebody in their property, hey, can't help you. It is what it is. In sovereign citizens' view, the government control and enslaved straw man is evidenced by documents showing the person's name in all capital letters, birth certificates, social security cards, driver's license, tax forms, etc. Therefore, represent only the shell corporate identity, the straw man. Therefore, because they are written in all caps. What they're not telling you is, I'm going to say it from this standpoint, anything associated with that name also has a number attached to it. When you open up a credit card account, it has a number attached to it. When you open up let's say, for instance, if you open up like an Amazon account and you use that name, it has a number attached to it. Anything you open up, if you have health insurance, if you have life insurance, if you have auto insurance, it always has a number attached after the name. But when you write your name, naturally, there's no number attached to it because it's not a transmitting utility. Look up transmitting utility in Black's Law Dictionary. Transmitting utility means I'm going to use this conduit, i.e. straw man, to place charges against that straw man and have you accept the liability on behalf of the straw man via signature. UCC 3419 says instrument signed for accommodation. So let's not be oblivious to how this works. They're just wanting you to believe that you're wrong, but you're not. It's just that they're using fraudulent and deceptive practices. Look up fraudulent and deceptive practices in Black's Law Dictionary. Fraudulent and misleading representation. Look it up in Black's Law Dictionary. I'm giving you all the definitions you need to clarify that these individuals are using false and misleading representations. So if you're saying I'm somebody that I know I'm not, and I'm telling you who I am, and you're telling me that this entity is charged, but you want me to accommodate the liability, that's fraud. The reason why they don't want to tell you this is because in 1933, United States declared bankruptcy. Okay? March 9th, 1933, United States declared bankruptcy, which was an extension of the act of October 6, 1917, which was called the Trading with the Enemies Act. But they don't never tell you this, though. So at the time Franklin Delano Roosevelt was actually elected president, he received pre-approved war powers to wage war against the American people, against the politics, against the economics of the American people. The then governors of the 44 then states pledged all the citizenry as collateral. So a pledge, look it up in Black's Law Dictionary, is basically saying we're going to pledge the people's equity, labor, taxation to finance these Chapter 11 reorganization expenses. Don't believe me, look this stuff up. They're not going to tell you this because, again, it's the biggest secret never told. So however they wish to dissect it, they always try to make common people who actually have skills of deduction and can read look like wackos. But I just gave you all the sources that you can look it up for yourself. A sovereign citizen avoids inadvertent subjection to this false government by signing documents in a manner that distinguishes the common law sovereign from the straw man. For example, by identifying oneself as lowercase John Doe, executive trustee for the private contract trust known as all caps John Doe, or by identifying oneself as executive for the straw man, or by using a copyright symbol with the name or saying John Doe, lowercase secured party, authorized representative, attorney in fact, in behalf of John Doe. That is called proper representation. Propria personam, look it up in Black's Law Dictionary. The law tells you you must describe yourself in proper person. If you are misrepresented in all caps, that is not proper person. It's Latin for improper person. Propria personam. That's what the law says. See what I'm saying? I'm going by what the law says. I'm not going by my conjecture. When you go sui juris, before the court in propria personam, that's what you're doing. But they want you to believe that you're doing something wrong. See, their ideology is the fact that they know that they can't jurisdictionally trap you. Because if you become an accommodation party for the straw man, then guess what? We got you. And now they're going to foist these contracts upon you because that's all they are. Erie Railroad versus Tompkins, the case was determined in 1938. Where there's no contract, there's no case. So they know it's a contract. All court cases after 1938, after that court decision from the Supreme Court, not known to be overturned, has made all court cases contracts, which is why you have a number after each case that's filed, whether you're the plaintiff or you're the defendant. There's a case number. There's a bond affixed to the case. They're not going to tell you this, though, but this is the truth. You think these people do this for free? No, they don't. And of course, they're going to put documentation. They're going to put publications out here like this because this affects their income. Hey, I mean, it is what it is. I'm going to be the one to say it. Let's go further. Or using the prefix noble or the suffix bay or el bay with one's name and so forth. To further avoid inadvertent submission, which you should rightfully do, To the false government, the sovereign may use red ink, add thumbprints to documents, put the zip code in brackets to say near as part of the address. There are innumerable varieties to this queer view of the law, but all are intended by sovereign citizens to make sure you know you are no longer dealing with the enslaved strawman. You now have the real common law sovereign in front of you. They know this, but they're trying to make it seem like you're a quack if you do it. They know this. They just admitted it in but so many words. There are innumerable varieties of this queer view of the law, but all are intended by the sovereign to make sure you know that you are no longer dealing with the enslaved strawman. You have the real common law sovereign in front of you. Again, the beliefs and practices can vary considerably from group to group and person to person. But once you are familiar with the ideas above, you are more likely to realize you are dealing with a sovereign citizen. Quote, this is what he wrote, not me. There will be talk about common law, admiralty law, which are all laws you can look up now. You can look them all up. And oaths of office, which every public official must take. Police officers, judges, and district attorneys as well. They know you have to take an oath of office before you can actually hold office. But they want to make it seem as if us asking of the validity of it is a problem. You see what I'm saying? And they all have to take the oath. But do they uphold it? We know they don't. Let's stop playing. There's also a strange twist to their thinking that puts the Uniform Commercial Code at the center of much of the theory. For those who identify themselves as Moorish nation or something similar, there's also a belief that in 1787 Treaty of Peace and Friendship, they say it's fictitious, but Treaty of Peace and Friendship, look it up. It's not fictitious. It's actually real. The Treaty of Peace and Friendship grants them immunity from United States law. Some may claim to occupy United Nations Indigenous People seat 215. There is no such thing. But his publication, if you were just gullible, you wouldn't look it up. Look it up. United Nations Indigenous People seat 215. If there's no such thing, how could you reference it? If the treaty was fictitious, how could you reference it? This is why I try to tell people study is very important. If you don't study, you will let other people's ideology ruin your personal freedom, not liberty. Your personal freedom. Liberty is a concept that was created through the constructs that we also know don't exist in this country. But your personal freedom is what you should look out for. And create their own birth certificates. We can't do that. No one has the authority to actually create their own state-issued birth certificate because we weren't of competent authority when it was established at the beginning from the get-go. You see what I'm saying? So, ad nauseum on that point. But let's just say we had no legal cognizance to actually put this together. We did it. In addition to driver's licenses and vehicle registration. Okay, let's go a little further with this one. There's nothing wrong with having a driver's license. There's nothing wrong with having a driver's license. Here's the thing. What you need to understand is that when you own one, you contracted with the state. You created a bond. What they don't tell you about is municipal bonds. Look it up. Every time you sign for a driver's license, you create a municipal bond, which means that they're going to incur no liability if they ticket you. That's why you get tickets. That's why they issue tickets. They issue these tickets because the bond you created goes along with that number that's on that license, which means that you not paying covers them because they'll take you to jail, which is kidnapping. But at the same token, it's called munis bonds. Look it up. Municipal bonds. So when you go to the DMV and they tell you to sign the electric signature, you don't even know what you're signing on the other side of that screen when you're at the DMV. The screen is to them. They just give you something to sign. You don't know what you're signing for. So why would you sign any contract not knowing exactly what it is? That screen is turned towards them. They never turn the screen towards you and show you what you're signing. Am I right or wrong? Leave it in the comment section. I know I'm right. They never tell you this. But go right ahead and believe them. That's the reason you have a driver's license. The driver's license is otherwise something to do something that is allowed to do that otherwise be considered illegal. Look up license in Black Law Dictionary. So basically, anyone that owns a license is breaking the law. They don't tell you this because Black's Law Dictionary breaks down what license is. The object of having a license, if you want to avoid legal trouble, it is what it is. But the idea is to never accept the liability of using it. Because what they never told you about accepting it was that there's going to be a liability attached to it. They just told you need to have one. I wrote congressmen, I've written the sheriff for authorization to travel. You know what? They couldn't issue it. You know why? Because they don't have the authority to give it. So if you don't have the authority to issue an authorization to travel, how do you have the authority to issue a ticket? That's another conversation for another day. The point is to remember that whatever circuitous and illogical route they take to get there, sovereign citizens reject the current federal, state, and local governments. False. That is false. False. And I'm going to be the one to say it. That's false. Because first off, federal government in and of itself recognizes the rights of indigenous people. However, since people have been taken from one estate to another, i.e. natural, into corporatocracy, then basically, yeah, they're going to basically look at you as a corporation. You see what I'm saying? But naturally, we will say that they do recognize indigenous people. They do recognize indigenous tribes. They do. It's just not widely dispersed. It's hidden because they use it to their advantage to mold and shape it to their way. Now, we know all the people of the Cherokee Nation. We know all those of the Blackfoot, all those of the Chippewa, all those of the Algonquin do not look like what they look like today. We're not going to play that. You know what I'm saying? We're not going to play that. But y'all get what I'm saying. Look up $5 Indians. That's all I got to say. When it seeks their benefit, oh, it's cool. I'm just going to go ahead and pay $5 and get on the dog's roll. That makes me a part of a nation. Yeah, right. You can only be a part of a nation by blood. But they won't tell you that, though. But that's neither here nor there. We'll get there later. Names of their organizations. Oh, wow. Two of the most prevalent sovereign citizens groups in North Carolina are the Moorish Nation and the Washita Nation. Moorish Nation's adherent may refer to the Moorish Science Temple, Moorish Republic, United Nuwabian Nation of Moors, Mur Republic, or other variations. Moorish sovereigns tend to be black and younger. Many get started on the path in prison. That's absolutely not true. But the Washita Nation, a Moorish branch, is tied to a group in Poverty Point, Louisiana. White supremacist organizations such as Aryan Nation may embrace sovereign citizen ideology as well. So too many freedmen and related groups. There are also the North Carolina American Republic in the Mooresville area, and there are groups in the Embassy of Heaven, Aware Group, and Carolina Liberty. Seems like y'all just be watching these people all over the place. That's just really what it seems like to me. Not all sovereign citizens affiliate with any particular organization. Individuals may access sovereign citizen theory and documents easily through the internet. I can tell you right now, it's not easily. Anything that's easily obtained in regards to this subject and this subject matter, I can tell you right now, it's probably been compromised. I will tell you that from a person who's been doing this for well over 9 years. And not surprisingly, there are numbers of vendors of driver's license, license tags, pleadings, and other papers who are glad to sell their wares to anyone who sees them a means to be free from traffic tickets, taxes, and other government obligations. Well, people, if you've been following my channel for quite some time, I've actually given you and shown you forms freely that the government itself even gives you to actually make you exempt from taxation. I mean, they actually tell you this is the form you fill out for exemption. But they want you to believe that people are selling this stuff, even though these are IRS forms that you can go look up yourself. Real talk. Identification. I'm going to skip that because we already touched on that. Okay, let's go on to... Here it is, filings. Ironically, given the views of on the illegitimacy of government, sovereign citizens are prolific at filing papers with those same government offices. Let me tell you something. I've said this time and time again on my channel, and I will say it again today. All of that stuff doesn't make no difference when you filing all that paperwork. They're not going to read it. They don't recognize it. They don't want to see it because if they recognize it and they see it, it incriminates them. That's the truth. It makes them responsible. They don't want to be responsible. They want to hand out responsibility, but they don't want to accept the responsibility, which is the liability that we were talking about. Government entities are constitutors. Look up the word constitutor in Bouvier's Law Dictionary, 1865. It says a constitutor is he or she who swore to pay the debt of another, and that is always the principal obligation. That is what it says. That means that if they issue the liability, they're responsible for it. according to House Joint Resolution 192, passed June 5th, 1933, at 4:33 p.m. Look it up. It says every obligation that is recorded to the United States with public and private debts shall be made payable to the United States. The United States has to pay it. But they have totally misled the population into believing that you have to pay a debt. Hence the term they always use, debt to society. What debt did I create? They can never get down to that. And if you watch me for years and you've been following me for years, you know debt validation letters. Okay, if you're saying I owe you, prove it to me in writing. Don't say I just owe you something. Prove it to me in writing if I'm wrong. And you give them what is called an opportunity to cure. If they don't have an opportunity, then they fail to state a claim upon which relief can be granted. These are all legal terms. This is not my conjecture. If they can't prove you owe something, then you don't. It's all fictitious. That's what they don't tell you. Now, here's another thing. Most of the papers sovereign citizens filing are seeking relief from criminal charges. Well, why would they seek relief? Look at the word relief in Black's Law Dictionary. From criminal charges or demanding money. And many are designed to harass or intimidate public officials. False. Anytime someone sends something to your house in regards to a debt collector or anybody in regards to, compelling a performance, such as failure to appear for jury duty may result in a warrant to your arrest. That is compulsion. That's compelling you to do something you otherwise wouldn't have not done had you not had that notice. But then when they demand money, they're not demanding money from the person because, to be honest with you, you just take that out in a state tort claim action. State tort. But you have to prove it wrong. See, all of these are legal remedies that they don't like used against them because they know for a fact that you cannot assert rights when it comes down to corporations. The only thing that can make a corporation change the way it operates towards you is hitting them in their pocket. That's it. But you have to prove it wrong, though. You just can't say because you felt a certain type of way, this is what you're entitled to. You have to prove it wrong. Once you prove it wrong, you take it before a higher judiciary, i.e. federal court, and you basically sue them for tort, for damages. That's what you do. Here's the sampling of the kind of documents clerk of court and registers of deeds might expect from sovereign citizens. A notice of copyright as to the person's name, often labeled common law copyright notice, which is what it is. Registered warrant claim of trust special deposit. Filings responding to traffic tickets or other charges, labeling these documents as abandoned paperwork, and demanding that the court official respond with authentication of authority, a certified copy of the officer's oath, a certified copy of the official's bar bond, and so on, which is rightly what you should do. Okay? But they want you to believe that it's wrong. A common law copyright is common law. Registered warrant claim for trust special deposit, you do your research on that one. You know what I'm saying? I ain't gonna go too deep into that. Abandoned paperwork. Do your research on what abandoned is in Black's Law Dictionary. Okay. Bond. Look up the word bond in Black's Law Dictionary. A response to a traffic ticket. An affidavit of specific negative averment. Opportunity to cure and counterclaim. That's basically a rebuttal. What they're not telling you is that whenever you have a court case brought against you in court, if you do not rebut an affidavit with an affidavit, that means that you consent by assent. Look up consent by assent in Black's Law Dictionary. Opportunity to cure, Black's Law Dictionary. Specific negative averment, that's a federal rule of civil procedure, 9A. It says particularly in that federal civil rule, it says you have to allege the capacity in which to sue and to be sued. So whenever someone gives you a traffic ticket, you are being sued. So whenever you rebut the affidavit, which is called the charging instrument, Black's Law Dictionary, you're basically saying, I'm not going to assent to what you're saying I am supposedly, allegedly held, presumably by law, guilty of. That's all you're saying. Notice the international claim where Admiralty ab initio administrative remedy. These are all excellent remedies, by the way, to be honest with you. All excellent. It's just that they won't acknowledge it. They won't acknowledge it. Now, express specific reservation of rights, certificate of non-response, an invoice for an outrageous sum of money and millions of billions of dollars. Well, it all depends on who writes and who drafts it up. You can put it up there for $1. I mean, really. Certification of non-response, an invoice. I just read that. Non-negotiable declaration in the form of trust affidavit of commerce, notice of default, notice of demand for full disclosure. There's nothing wrong with demanding full disclosure. In every instance in commerce, wherever a contract is not fully disclosed, it cannot be enforced. Affidavit of citizenship and domicile, legal notice, right to travel, notice of dishonor, notice of silver surety bond, asseveration, non-statutory abatement, notice of default, default judgment, and praecipe. Look that up in Black's Law Dictionary. Most significantly, sovereign citizens attempt to claim false lands against public officials have crossed them. Starting December 1st, 2012, a new North Carolina statute, GS 14-118.6, makes it a Class 1 felony to knowingly present for filing a false lien or encumber against the property of a public officer or employee based on that person's performance of official duties. The statute also establishes a procedure for the Register of Deeds to reject such a filing, which is why I'm free today. And I haven't been charged with a felony. If that were true. But I'm not recording this from a prison cell. I'm just saying, as opposed to what they're trying to make you believe, as opposed to what I've done. I mean, it's totally different. They attempt to file their documents on legal size paper. Duh. And that's the end of it. So all in all, it's just a quick guide. But I just gave you, if you pay close attention, I just gave you the remedies that they don't wish to acknowledge. See, they tell you what to expect, but they never tell you what they're used for. I just did, in brief. Now, if you would like more information on this, I always tell people all the time, private consultation, book me, it is what it is. Simple as that. You see what I'm saying? And when you have these things in place, you're a threat. It's not that you're a threat like you want to take over the world. You're just basically saying, in but polite terminologies, leave me the fuck alone. Because all they're trying to do is prey upon the ignorance of the population. I don't give a damn what color you are, what nationality, what origin. Everyone, irrespective of what they believe, with the matrix ideology that they have foisted upon society, wants everybody to think the same. You must, you have to, you must, you must, you must. No one ever questions. You notice how they always say you ain't supposed to question God? Well, sometimes you might just have to. Okay? Now, I know that people through their indoctrination won't accept what I just said. But look at the back of the money. It says, in God we trust, right? Well, I can't trust something I don't interpret. Do you get what I'm saying now? You see what I'm saying? Hopefully that'll, unclog a little bit of the clutter of indoctrination from some people who are watching this video. But at the same token, they will turn around and try to make you seem like you're the bad guy for defending yourself when I just showed you and told you where to go look majority of these sources up. Some of y'all who really do y'all due diligence might have to start this video from the beginning and look up exactly what I was saying, and you put the pieces together. See, when you put the pieces together, then you can see it for yourself, not opposed to what they're saying. Because this quick guide to sovereign citizens is nothing more than an oxymoronic statement anyway. You cannot be a sovereign and a citizen at the same time. It's either one or the other. The thing is, they want you to relinquish your sovereignty because that gives them control. Notice what it says in their documentation. I'm going to close on this point. It says, the government derives. Look up the word derives. It means something taken. Notice what it said. It didn't say willingly given. It said taken. Derive. A derivative. They derive their powers by the consent of the governed. They take their powers by the consent of the governed. Consent could be implied, expressed, or silently accepted. Tacitly. So we're going to take our powers from you because we don't have any without you. So the sovereign cedes his sovereignty or her sovereignty when they consent. Cruden versus Neal, a case that was decided in 1739, says, all men are independent of all laws except those prescribed by nature. He is not bound to any institution formed by his fellow man without his consent. The case was decided in 1739, not known to be overturned. 1739, that's older than this country. I'm just saying. And that came from prior constitutional republic back when they had the Articles of Confederation. But do your research. Don't take my word for it. Okay? So before this quasi corporate status through the DC Organic Act of 1871 came into play, what was it? It was a actual non-de jure constitutional republic, which no longer exists. Why do you think they don't use the Pledge of Allegiance in school anymore? It's not because of some magical Supreme Court case. It's because it's no longer a republic. They have finally admitted it. Tacitly. But don't take my word for it. Do your research. This is not a republic. It's not. It's not, nor is it a democracy. Once corporations get involved, all that's out the window. Because corporations can't do business with natural people. Facts. But don't take my word for it, though. Do your research. Without further ado, I rest my case. And this is dispelling the darkness, because I know a lot of people will in future generations for time to come. They're going to be looking up this information, and they're going to lose faith, because they're going to be like, this doesn't work, because they're going to always believe in what they say. What they say is only looking out for their best interest to make sure that they can keep you keeping their pockets full. And that's in less than an hour. But don't take my word for it. You got all day to do your research. It is what it is, people. Don't go by what people say as far as what they put in these publications. It is your job. It is your duty. It is your due diligence to dissect, to test, and to make sure you improve your understanding on what you're dealing with. And I just showed you that. The rest is up to you. I'll leave my email, all my information in the video description. It is what it is. Peace, light, love. I got business to take care of. See y'all soon. Take care.